Okay, we're here. Hey everyone. It's funny, I just said, okay, we're here, and the dog jumped up and then thought we were going somewhere, and then he looked at me sitting, and then he just fucking walked into the other room. He's figuring it out. He knows what a podcast is. He knows. He knows. He's smart. My favorite thing when people go, no, he knows. He knows. And it's usually something so incredibly complicated that there's no dog in the world that could ever understand it. Like there was one video once where someone took their dog in to donate blood, and the dog was sitting there afterwards, and he was just, like, how dogs just like open their mouth when they breathe. And the person was like, Riley is so happy after donating blood for a good cause. And I was like, that's just what fucking dogs look like, you idiot. And I'm pretty sure she meant it. I think like she thought that's the dog's emotional reaction, even though when a dog is out of breath, it'll just go, and it looks like it's smiling and happy. If anything, actually, it probably was one of the least happy moments of its life, because it was in a medical facility. The walls are just bright white and sterile, and it probably smells similar to like a vet's office, and fucking no dog likes the vet. A needle was put into its body. So congratulations, actually. You just took your dog in to experience the worst thing it's ever had happened to it. No, you don't know. He knows what getting your blood drawn and donating it. He knows what donations are. He knows what the Red Cross is. He knows what it means to have blood removed from his body and then put in a vial and then have that vial sent to. He knows that, though. He even knows where it was going. They told him, and he knew what a different building was. He knew. Your dog knows it wants food. That's it. And it knows that it loves you. That's it. Support this person with this fucking coffee, you guys. Am I still using this Chemex? We're still using I got this Brooklyn Magazine mug. Brooklyn magazine I write for, everybody. If you didn't know that, go to their thing and read all my articles. I just did one recently where I interviewed a doctor. It was a gastrointestinal specialist. I interviewed him about these fucking lunatics that eat hot dogs on the 4th of July. And it was essentially like, would you as a doctor recommend this? And then what the fuck actually goes down in your stomach when you eat 60 something hot dogs? I can't even think about 60 hot dogs without going like, where's the Tums? No, I can't. I'm going to vomit. I'm going to vomit the thoughts I just had about it. It is so fucking gross watching that shit. You are looking at people like dipping bread into water just so they can shove it down their faces, and then, they're breaking up the hot dogs and just like a fucking wood chipper would just be like, but with hot dogs. It's so disgusting. I watched a documentary. There's a 30 for 30 because it's technically a sport. So there's an ESPN 30 for 30 on the hot dog eating guys. And people always make the joke, and I think I even made it in the intro to the article, like, this is like the most American thing you can do. But eating contests and professional competitive eaters got big in Japan first. So it's the most Japanese thing you could do, really. I mean, Americans like took it to another level because that's what we do. The whole like crazy TV shows and crazy contest stuff, like that's been big in Japan for a long time. They have like insane game shows over there, where people are just getting hurt and they just make no sense, but they're fun to watch because that's the point. Competitive eaters were like big over there, and that's why the first couple champions were these Japanese guys. Kobayashi was the guy that was unbeatable for a long time, and then Joey Chestnut was like, no, I'm going to be the guy that eats more hot dogs and devotes his life. It's a weird thing to devote your life to. And he's not like a loser. Joey Chestnut, like, he went to college and got an engineering degree, like he was just a dude with like a real job that paid well. He wasn't like this hopeless loser, But that's what you would think if someone goes like, hey man, I'm going to change my whole purpose in life and eat hot dogs for a living to get a record. And you would go, oh, are you an orphan with no direction in life and no one taught you how to be a person? That's what your first thing was say. And then Joey Chestnut goes, no, I'm an engineer by trade. I just would rather eat hot dogs because I have some weird thing to prove. And then I guess maybe he didn't know how to play guitar or sing or do anything, funnel that energy into anything else. And in the documentary, they were like, yeah, we're a family of eaters. I'm like, so is fucking most of America. We're all fat fucks, Everyone's a family of eaters. But what level of eating is that family doing to where he was like, oh, you know what the next logical step is after eating big dinners with my family? Eating 70 hot dogs on ESPN. He's the champion now. It's a good 30 for 30. A lot of those 30 for 30s are good. And this is coming from someone who doesn't give a fuck about most sports besides boxing. But 30 for 30s are really well done. They capture whatever the story is they're trying to tell about an athlete or a sport in a short period of time. They're not too long, and they're entertaining. And this one was too, but it was just so bizarre. And he's the champ, man, and he's the guy. He won this year too. So anyway, I talked to this gastro doctor, and it's not a surprise. He was like, don't fucking do this. I would not recommend it. But I got into a lot of the, ins and outs about how, what's going to happen in your stomach. Like, is there really a way to prepare if you were like, no, doc, I'm going against your advice and I'm going to eat 70 hot dogs. What's going to happen? And shit can go really sideways. So yeah, I want to talk about this. So we're still doing this coffee program thing that we signed up for. It's called Drink Trade, drinktrade.com. And they just send you, hold on, is that going to focus? Yeah, there we go. This is from Blueprint, and Blueprint is a roaster out of St. Louis, Missouri. And that's one of the cool things about this company is not Blueprint, Drink Trade. You get coffees from different roasters all over the country and technically world. I think there's some from Europe and wherever else, but I think it's mostly the States. And it's great because, like, in Brooklyn, there's a lot of great coffee roasters and things like that. So you have tons of options. But I've traveled this country extensively, and there are some coffee roasters in places you would not assume. You'll go to like Onyx Coffee is one of the best coffee roasters in America, and they're in I think they're based out of Little Rock, and I first tried them in Kansas City of all places, and then maybe somewhere else, and I just immediately was like, how do I get this? And it's not that easy to find. So there's tons of roasters like that. They're all over, and I'm sure there are other companies that do this sort of order coffee from wherever, but Drink Trade has a really well curated list of places. Let's go to the website real fast. And for those of you listening and not watching, this part's going to be boring because we're looking at a website. So if you're listening to this podcast, go watch the YouTube version of it. And while you're there, subscribe to my channel so I can get to the number of subscribers that'll let me monetize this fucking piece of shit channel. And okay, so how it works. You basically fill out what kind of coffee you like, and they get into, light roast, dark roast, what kind of flavor notes and that sort of stuff. And they make it easy for people that don't know how to describe the kind of coffee they like. And watch, we can start it, I guess. I'll pretend like I don't have an account there. So, I want to drink coffee and I don't know anything because I go to Starbucks and I'm a dumb loser. What do I do to make my life better, Nick? You go to drinktrade.com. And this is not a sponsor, by the way. I'm not in any way, let me go back, in any way affiliated with it. I genuinely just love the roasters they use, and the shit shows up fucking fast. And they time it to where you will get a bag the day after it's roasted. So they'll roast it fresh, bag it, ship it to you. So it's never more than a few days old, which is key for if you want to maximize the potential of coffee that's you're paying a couple extra bucks for and want quality. So you go light, medium, dark. I usually do light because like I like my coffees to taste like tea, and I like my tea to taste like coffee. Not like coffee, but flavor. No, I like dark, smoky, earthy teas. And a lot of times old school coffee is like dark, rich, chocolatey, nutty kind of thing. And teas a lot of times are, light, floral, fruity, but that's how I like my coffee. So I go light roast. Taste preference, I do fruity. Milk and sugar, I don't even know why that's on there. If you're gonna just douse your shit in milk and sugar, why use this service? Just get your local bullshit somewhere. And then you can pick so here's it'll give you like, okay, we think you'll like these coffees, and then they're from all over. Small Plains, I'd never heard of before this service. Joe Coffee's here in New York, and so is Irving Farm. You can basically tell them, I don't want this one. If they go, here's your next coffee, they'll tell you a few days in advance. And you go, no, I don't want that. I want this next one. And you can swap out coffees. You can create like a queue. You can go, I want this one, this week and this one next, and really mix and match and sort of lay out your next month. And you can do it. You can have a bag a week, 2 bags a week, and then they lower the price, I think, if you get more. So if you're like a household, if you're like a family and you're going through more shit, if you get like 2 bags per order, they'll lower the price and stuff. And then it comes out to be what a bag of coffee is going to be at your local third wave, snobby, obnoxious hipster place. And in terms of trying new shit, not getting bored of the stuff, it's great. I think I have a coupon code for it, because when you sign up, they go, hey, refer a friend, and then I'll get money off, and then you will too. But I'm not going to give it to just anybody. It's only for people in my Patreon. So sign the fuck up for that. Patreon.com/ATNY. Go check it out. There's stuff there. There's stickers, there's mugs, there's shirts, there's tote bags for the different levels. And there are discounts for things that I like to use. And again, not a sponsor. I just like their shit. So that's that. That's Drink Trade. I'll tell you something I've learned, by the way, from trying a bunch of these places and having access to such good coffee kind of everywhere now. It's so, you almost take it for granted because you're like, so much coffee is high quality that you are never lacking. But what does end up happening sometimes is places aren't that consistent, which kind of sucks. So the quality's still good, but you're like, God, I really would want this to taste the same every time, not way more fruity or less notes like this. Or they're changing the varietals, like they're working with which is great to always be sampling new things and changing up your lineup and stuff. But what I've come to appreciate more is I really appreciate consistency now. And I was just telling my girlfriend this the other day. We go to variety roasters a lot. They're mostly in Brooklyn. They have like a bunch of locations, and now they have a few in Manhattan. And their whole thing is they don't do a lot of like experimental super light roast stuff. They do some of that, but they have drip coffee at the shops every day, and it's this sort of medium-ish roast, and it's like, imagine the best version of good diner coffee. Just heavy enough, it's just nutty and chocolatey enough, but still light enough to where you're not like, your whole mouth isn't just full of like intense dark roast coffee. Like that's too much. So you can have a couple of cups of it and still feel good about it. They're probably one of the most consistent coffee roasters I've ever been to. It never fails. Like when I say I want this cup of coffee and I want it to taste exactly like this, I know I'm going to get it at variety. And what's amazing about it too is that it's at all the locations, every single one. It's so they're roasting these in massive batches and they're nailing it every goddamn time. The only thing that sometimes isn't as consistent, but still they're in the 80th percentile, is the espresso, because that's like barista to barista. They can like fuck that up and or does not get it like that precise. It's never been bad there. But the batch brew drip, I'm telling you, man, if you don't want something super light and experimental and funky and fruity and stuff, variety drip coffee, 1,000%. Can't recommend it enough. And they're not on Drink Trade. I feel like they should be. It's funny once you have like endless choice, you start to appreciate different things because consistency is fine and you take that for granted when you don't have a ton of options and you're like, well, yeah, this is the only thing anyway, so consistent or not, what other choice is there? But once you have the dilemma of choice, it sort of helps you narrow it down a little bit. So now I have like a handful of places. I have a few from Drink Trade that I like to go back to, a few roasters. Now, okay, let me get back in this onto this. You guys can get onto this screen again with me. So Broadsheet's a good one. Panther, I'm kind of, whatever on. They're, I think, a Florida roaster. Reanimator is really good. That's one I recommend. So if you want to try this out, you can ask me what I like, and I'll probably give you a couple recommendations. Here we go. The queue. So you go. We send you one bag of coffee every 10 days. That's what we have it at right now, once every 10 days. And it's pretty good. Small Plains, Orange, I don't even know where that one's from. So that's going to be exciting because I've never had Orange. I don't even know where. The bag doesn't look familiar. And that's a Guatemalan sweet and tart flavor profile. Like, that's going to be great. So, and the one following that's going to be in August is from Panther. I don't really care. So I can just remove that and then trade it in with something. Oh, this one is one of the best. Temple Roasters. They are from Sacramento. So right now I'm gonna add Temple. I'm gonna go, yes, please. I want to swap it with Panther because fuck that place. No, it's fine. But I'd rather have Temple. And then there you go. I can move it there, even though it's not letting me. And now I'm angry. Cool. So that whole thing to show you how easy it is to didn't work, but that's fine. I'll figure it out. That's not your guys' problem. So Temple Coffee is a Sacramento-based place, and they are one of the best roasters in the country. The precision when it comes to like light roast coffee, I mean, you can smell it right when you open the fucking bag. You're like, this is going to feel so good. Not even taste. It's just what's good about coffee is that you are surrounded, like that attacks all of your senses, and it's just those like in cartoons where like a hungry coyote is like waiting for food, and then like the scent of the food, this animated sort of like scent comes by, and then it like gets under his nostril, and then he's just like taken by it, and he's just like floating along. That's what happens with really good coffee. You're just like, you go on this ride and you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to roast this. And then the ritual of the whole thing starts. You heat up your water, you measure out the beans, and then you grind them, and then when they're ground, you take it out of the basket, and then you smell the ground up beans, and it smells a little different than the whole bean, and that's a whole nother. You're like, oh my God, we're getting closer. And I know a part of this is fueled by full-on addiction. That's partly why this is, the process and the ritual of it is like so satisfying. But also, I mean, it smells great. It's going to taste great. And then you start the brewing process, whatever that's going to be. I use the robot espresso, hand-powered espresso machine every day. Love it. That's another good way to try out the two coffees. Not the two coffees, one coffee, two ways. You get to learn like, okay, that's how this tastes as a pour over, and that's how it tastes as an espresso. Some are good on both, and some you'd be surprised. You're like, wow, that does not make a good shot of espresso. Now, I do have a hand-powered one, so I can't really dial it in the same way. So maybe there is another way. If you have a nice, expensive, fancy machine, by all means, try it. It's fun to figure out what's going to work and what's not. So what did work is this Blueprint coffee from Peru, single origin, wash process, delicious. I'd do Blueprint again, and the bag is cool. They got a good look, focus. There you go. But again, if you're in the Patreon, I'll give you a code. So I was doing this for a while. I was using this simple observation book on the on the podcast, just to like as a jumping off point sometimes, or as an anywhere in the middle point. Um, so it's meant to, you open it up and there are prompts, and you're meant to write in the box or draw something. Like it'll go, there'll be questions like, what does a drawing sound like, which is so fucking abstract, but that's the point. You go sort of put some thought into what does that even mean, and then write about it. And there's no consequences. It's not due. You don't have to turn it into anybody. No one's going to see it. It's like a take on a journal, and it's good for creativity. And there's another one sometimes that'll tell you to draw what your current mood looks like. And right now I would just draw a cup of coffee because that's what I've been talking about, and that's all I can think about. Write a famous quote from memory. Describe your earliest memory. So what I was doing for a little bit is I would just go to a page, pick one, and start talking about it. But I'll do this one. Describe your earliest memory. I actually do think about this sometimes because I'm getting older, and your memories start to, what they do is they will crystallize into like a snapshot as you get older. So, when you're 15, your memories, if you have any, of being like 4, 5, or 6 or something, you can sort of kind of remember the scene, where the birthday party you went to where, you were happy to be invited because it was like you didn't get invited to anything when you were a kid. So like when you made a couple friends and they were like, come to the birthday party, it's at the park, you're like, whoa, my fucking life is gonna change. I'm gonna have friends. This is amazing. And there's the good and the bad that goes with it. And like you remember like sitting alone and not really knowing how to talk to people and that kind of stuff because you're just a kid and you didn't fit in, you didn't know how. And but then when you get older, like some of those things like enhance and some of them sort of fall off, where you're not thinking about the bad parts because you're like an adult now and you're not hurt by it anymore. It doesn't affect you. So you just kind of remember sort of, you just have the nostalgia of it. You're like, oh man, what it was like to be like an innocent, kid with nothing on your agenda, where you're just like, your biggest worry was, am I getting invited to a birthday party? I wish I had a friend. And you kind of, laugh about it. It just becomes like a funny memory of how big these little problems were, because that's all life was. It was just these, you go to school, you do homework, you go home, and repeat process, and like you're just waiting for summer to happen. So memories of things like that, you sort of just remember the park after a while. And then there's just sort of like how those loop videos on Instagram where it's just like 2 or 3 seconds, kind of like a GIF or something like that, where the memory just becomes like you and the other kids running back and forth, and there's the birthday cake, and it just sort of plays back this 2 or 3 second thing. And then more years go by, and then the memory just becomes a snapshot of all of you guys just in whatever position, grabbing a slice of cake, there's a piece of pizza, kids talking, laughing, parents making sure that you're not wandering off into the street. All that is just a snapshot moment. And the feeling that goes with it is like, I miss being a kid. And it was so pure and innocent, even though it didn't feel that way at the time because you had all this emotion attached to it. And in that sense, older memories are, your brain has to do that to help you keep going forward, because if you just remembered everything like it was turning on a fucking movie, it would be impossible to get through life because there'd be so much good, so much bad, and then nostalgia would just take over because it's so vivid. So once they distill into a snapshot, I think it becomes easier to use them in whatever way you need. And I just turned 41 now, and I think for me, remembering those moments and how they're not as heavy as they were, it sort of is a reminder that that's just how it is in life. Like you'll think of periods of time where things are awful and they're not going to get better, and then they pass. And when you're a kid, one school year feels like an eternity, and you're just like, oh my God, these were just like blips on the radar. Like a fucking school year isn't even a year. It's like what is it? September, October, November, January, February, March, April, May. 8 or 9 8 months. Oh my God. I mean, I've watched entire years go by as an adult where I'm like, God damn it, it was just January 5th and now you're getting ready for Christmas. So in a way, you go like, God, those were moments that like you felt like if you knew better, you would have held on to them or appreciated the day to day of it more because just racing to get to summer is like, I mean, summer's just, it's going to end and then you're going to go back to school. And so I try and remember that like the good old days as they call them are happening right now. When people say like your 20s or those are the good old days, the best years of your life, blah, blah, blah. I sort of thought that maybe when I was in my early 30s. And then, as my 30s were going on, I'm like, these are going to be the good old days because these are great too. And then now I'm like 41. They kind of both had their moments, but then I remember like these are also going to be the good old days when I'm 51. And I'm not going to really remember the highs and the lows in vivid detail. They're going to become snapshots. And then certain things I'll remember as they played out because I'm an adult. I'll probably hold on to memories from my 20s and 30s and right now a little bit better because there's more context. I think a lot of them are more meaningful. Because again, it's not like invited to a birthday party. It's like, stuff that has to do with your career and your love life and your family and, moving and living in different cities and all that stuff. I try and frame memories in that way whenever I can. And I think I probably do it more often than I should, or maybe more often than the average person, because I have a hard time with where I am in life. A lot of the time I'm hard on myself, and I don't think I say that, but I honestly don't think I am. I've just been told this by everybody, but deep down I'm like, I'm not doing enough. I genuinely don't believe it. I think I can do more. People say that, and sometimes I think they mean it. Sometimes I think they're being nice or they're saying it because they have to, and I just don't. I know time's going to run out. I know it's going to end. And I'm like halfway through life right now and maybe even more. And I just feel like I'm not doing enough. And I have to remind myself. Like, these are going to be the good old days at some point. So get the most out of them. Like, when you're depressed, get the fuck out of bed, go to the gym, go ride a bike, just go walk around the streets of New York or LA or whatever city that you are in on the road doing some shitty gig and wondering where your fucking life went wrong and why your career didn't work. Just go out there and do it, because maybe your life isn't working out right now, but in the broader context, it probably is, because there's still so much left that like this could have just been, one of the rough years or something. So I always have to remind myself of that because it's so easy to just get sucked into just the self-flagellation, like I fucked up, I didn't do it right, I should have done it harder, better, faster, stronger. I try and like use memories like that as like, not as like a weapon, but I try and use them as like a tool to help me get through. But to go back to the actual question, that's why I love these things, because the question, and then you just end up going in whatever direction. It's fun. The earliest memory I have two, and one of them was I was on a carousel in either Lebanon or Saudi Arabia. And the other one was definitely in Saudi Arabia. It was on a highway. And I remember it was a desert, one lane desert highway. And there was a giant, like, I don't know if it was like a sign or like an installation. Someone put it there, but it was a giant pole with a crescent moon on it. And it was just on the side of the highway, like kind of in the desert. And it was just because I was probably 3 or something. I was young. It was before I moved to America. And I remember it being like the biggest thing I'd ever seen, probably, But as the years have gone on, that memory doesn't have any movement to it. The carousel doesn't move. The freeways and the signs not moving past me. It has distilled into 2 snapshots. And a part of me thinks as I get older, I'm like, were they ever memories, or were they just in a like photo book I saw when I was a kid and my parents were like, yeah, we were there. I don't know. I've never seen the photos. So they must have been memories at some point, but those are the 2. And they're like, sadly, 2 of the few I have of being, you know, growing up, not growing up, but being a little kid in the Middle East. Yeah, it sucks. Like, I don't really, because I moved over when I was like 4 or 5. It's like, what memories do you have? And it wasn't pleasant those times. So maybe there's stuff in the subconscious that it needs to stay down. I mean, we're in the middle of a civil war. But yeah, those were the 2. I remember my mom told me this not too long ago, was when we were living in Saudi Arabia for like a year or 2, because that's the only place there was work. So my dad would have to go there to fucking make any amount of money because Lebanon was falling apart. And I remember, you know, women aren't allowed to move freely and live as free as a lot of other countries in Saudi Arabia. So she wasn't allowed to go anywhere or do anything. Women couldn't walk around on their own. So when my dad was at work, she would just sit with me in the apartment doing nothing all day. And I was like, wow, I don't remember that at all. I don't remember an apartment. I don't remember, you know, and how could you? I was, you know, 0, 1, 2, 3. I don't even remember what year we lived there, but that's another thing I'm trying to do too. Speaking of memories and, you know, back in the days, I'm trying to gather information from my parents. Like, where was I when we were there? Like, what were we doing? Like, she just randomly one day casually just told me, yeah, we were living in Saudi Arabia for a longer than I thought. I thought it was like a few months, but it might have been like 6, 8 months, could have been more. I mean, we were living in an apartment somewhere, but I want to know more about that stuff. I want to know like where we were when I was a little kid. And I'll never have the memories, but it'll be good to know that there are facts. And who knows, maybe they'll help drudge up some memories. That's a good way, I think, to sort of wake up, because I think everything's in there, right? Everything you've ever done and experienced on some level is in there. And maybe, you know, over the years, a lot of them just get distilled down to these snapshots, but I want to maybe like unearth some more of those snapshots. So I'm trying to like get into those conversations more and really find out where I came from and stuff. That was a good one. I don't even remember where I got this book. It had to be somewhere in New York. Oh yeah, 192 pages, designed in New York City, made in Taiwan. Baronfig.com. Baron Fig x Chantel Martin. I guess it was like some collaboration thing. You are you. Yes, I am. It's good. It would be a good gift, I think, if you're looking to get somebody something. And they don't even have to be creative people, I guess, but it would help if you know someone in the creative arts who's maybe in a rut. This would be good. Baronfig.com. In the spirit of keeping things not too long, let's end it right here.
It's the end of the show. Like, subscribe, and comment, and don't be a dick.